Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Swipe Up, episode 238, the podcast where I share my unfiltered thoughts on the latest news and entertainment updates. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this Thursday, every Thursday, I'll be bringing you my fresh perspectives on a variety of topics. In this episode, I am talking about the three stories I'm talking about. First one being the WGA strike. Kind of go through that, the issues, the stakes involved, movies and TV shows that are affected, maybe how long we can expect this to be going on, as well as the second story. I'm talking about everything you need to know about King Charles's coronation, diving into that just happened. I'm also going to be talking about what's in the House Republicans' bill to lift the debt ceiling and cut spending, because that is another big issue that it seems like the extremists in the government, the right-wing extremists, are in many ways holding the country hostage, trying to get insane things passed that will be horrible for the people, but will be amazing for the wealthy and corporations, as they clearly are the people they work for. So let's get into it with the first story here. WGA strikes explain the issues, the stakes, movies and TV shows affected, and how long the 2023 work stoppage might last. So the strike began at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time on May 3rd, a minute after the Writers Guild of America announced our contract with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers expired. The issue at stake includes compensation for writers in a changing media landscape, the survival of writing as a profession, and the potentially transformative impact of AI in generating scripts. The WGA is fighting for better pay and working conditions for writers, and to prevent the transformation of full-time careers into freelance work, which is something companies love, right? The gig economy, because if somebody's a freelance employee, then they don't by law have to offer them any benefits. It is the reason why, to relate it to sports, it is the exact reason why the UFC doesn't want to consider its fighters employees. It is why they consider them to be independent contractors. That way, they don't have to offer any things that are mandated by a company who has employees, despite the fact that fighters of the UFC are not allowed to work anywhere. They're contracted to work with them specifically, and it's just this loophole that a lot of businesses are using. It's the same reason why corporations like Uber and Lyft, that's why they love what they do. They're independent contractors. So they don't have to offer unemployment insurance. They don't have to offer health insurance, benefits of any kind. None of those things apply when somebody's an independent contractor. And also, it's like, you think about this AI, right? I've been talking about AI. It's going to be replacing a lot of jobs. The thing that I've noticed from listening to other people who are in the industry talking about things, that the executives and CEOs of these entertainment companies who only look at statistics and numbers and algorithms, the reason why everything that is put out is a remake or a reboot is because they have done well in the past. The same reason why Warner Brothers wants to do a TV series of Harry Potter, because they've seen the success that the Harry Potter movies have brought in for them. So they want to redo that thing. Same reason why Disney regurgitates every single thing, right? But in analyzing data, which is pretty much all these CEOs and executives are doing, they don't actually try to look for new stories. They don't have any desire to invest in creativity or originality. All of what they do, their jobs can literally be replaced by AI far easier than trying to replace a writer who's writing original scripts. Not that AI can't do that, but if you really want to cut out the big waste of money, it is the CEOs and executives who are getting paid exponentially more money than writers are and doing little to no work. Like literally you want to reform the industry, then you replace executives with AI and you instead take the money you were wasting on executives and give that to the writers, give that to the creative people. Since executives aren't making any real choices other than, oh, that's a pre-existing IP, let's put money into this because according to our numbers, it has this amount of an audience, we can expect this kind of turnout if we do these things, versus trying to assume artificial intelligence can produce art in the same quality as professionals. So that's one thing I've noticed, that like this, we should really be rethinking the structure of these companies that spend so much money on CEOs and executives that really don't do anything. They don't do any of the production. Workers, far more important. You want to replace, you want to change the money situation in these industries and make them the most beneficial for the people who actually do the work, is replace the CEOs and executives with AI. But anyway, the AMPTP is taking a conservative approach in representing the interests of the members, which include Hollywood studios, networks, streamers, and producers. The last time there was a writer strike was when streaming became a big thing. It was around when Breaking Bad, I forget which season of Breaking Bad, I think it was like a shortened season. But there was like impacts. There was impacts in shows where like shows really took a downturn when the writers went on strike and the studios kept trying to put out shows. Right? It was noticeable the impact that removing artists from their work had on these properties. Even though Breaking Bad was still able to survive, some of these shows were definitely able to survive, but some weren't. The strike could have a profound impact on the entire industry, which has just emerged from the impact of COVID. The COVID production slowdown. Studios, networks, and streamers want to maintain their profitability, right? Well, by that, they mean they want to maintain their bonuses and salaries for executives and pay as little as possible to the workers that actually produce the content. Late night shows such as The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon have already gone dark due to the strike. SNL, Saturday Night Live, and The Talk have also shut down. Daytime TV, particularly soap operas, could also be affected, which is kind of amazing soap operas still exist. It's like, I don't know, it's such a weird... It's how big the industry is. There's like massive sectors that I wouldn't even know. Like if soap operas ended 20 years ago, I would have no idea. Professional wrestling, which is not written by the WGA members, will not be impacted. Obviously, professional wrestling, which I think the UFC just bought out WWE, and the UFC's employment model is already everybody is independent contractor. So not surprising that they are anti-union. It's kind of been the UFC's major thing for many years. Every time a major player in MMA tries to form a union, the UFC really knows how to pit everybody against each other to keep them from working together to make good money. Meanwhile, like UFC is like one of the most profitable entertainment things. People get paid so little money, especially like the lower end guys. Like maybe if you're Conor McGregor or John Jones, Ronda Rousey, all these fighters that barely ever fight anymore anyway, that made their millions. That's not like the standard. That's so far from the standard. Most MMA fighters get paid very little, and when they're done fighting, are damaged. When you take a career of head trauma, things aren't good unless you're like Forrest Griffin and you helped spark the public's enthusiasm in the sport. A work stoppage in May could delay the network television season, reducing the amount of new programming produced for the 2023-24 network season. Networks may lean into unscripted programming as a result of the strike, further accelerating the decline of scripted programming on linear television. The theatrical release calendar could see several date changes for films, with some potentially being pulled from Q4 of 2023 and pushed to 2024. A delay in production could lead to a post-production logjam, similar to what happened during the pandemic, which, you know, when the pandemic happened, yeah, there was a slowdown. And then once things started opening up, yeah, there was a lot of movies. A lot of great movies came out really fast. And, you know, it is what it is. Several unions, including the DGA, SAG-AFTRA, and IATSE, which I don't know what that stands for, have contracts with the AMPTP expiring soon. The Directors Guild of America begins negotiations on May 10th, and SAG-AFTRA begins on June 7th. So if they choose not to negotiate and push this things off, and I hate the what you're seeing, the anti-union thing where studios are putting out articles, news organizations are putting out articles, making it seem like the writers are at fault for these things being delayed, when it's the companies not paying the writers enough. Like, if you want to get mad at anybody, get mad at the people who are making all of the money and who are unwilling to pay writers to do their job. Those are the people who need to negotiate and pay the writers more. But everybody that's like, I mean, it's all right-wing people for the most part, are people that just selfish and don't understand the importance of unions or how little writers actually make doing these things. Like, to blame the writers is so ridiculous. It's so, like, you are literally doing the work of billionaires for them, right? You need to understand why they're on a strike and why it's important that they get compensated correctly for their work, right? Meanwhile, executives who do nothing creatively, who literally do a job that could easily be replaced, effortlessly be replaced by AI, make the majority of the money, is absurd. Streaming residuals are on the bargaining agenda for both the DGA and WGA, specifically residuals for shows and movies streaming internationally. Unions and guilds have come out publicly in support of the WGA, including SAG-AFTRA, the Directors Guild, Hollywood Tastemakers Local 399, the American Federation of Musicians, and the UK Writers Guild. Concerns about labor unrest and uncertainty surrounding pending corporate restructuring have contributed to 35.8% plunge in on-location TV production in Los Angeles in the first quarter of 2023 compared with the same period last year. The entertainment industry pays out $21 billion per year to more than 260,000 businesses in cities and small towns across the country, per the Motion Picture Association. The 2007 WGA strike, which is the one I was referring to before, resulted in WGA writers and IATSE union members losing $342.8 million in wages and a hit to the Los Angeles economy of $2.1 billion. But people got wealthy. There's a small percentage of people who do very little to no work who got wealthy from that. It is disgusting. And of course, that happened right before the economic crash of 2008. And what we're seeing in a story I'm going to get to is we could be right around the corner from another one of those because of the greedy and puppets, the completely puppeteered politicians in the Republican Party who are doing everything to help out the smallest population of people who are the most wealthiest, while attacking the smallest population of people unjustly. It's insane. There's a bunch I've seen, like the Blade remake is being put on hold because of this. The Stranger Things, new season of Stranger Things is being put on hold because of this. Other shows have been put on hold because of this, which I'm perfectly fine with. I can wait. I know, I would much rather see these writers get paid and get compensated justly instead of seeing executives and major corporations continuing to profit off of their just like uselessness in society and ability to take advantage of workers who do all of the work. All of these shows would not exist if not for writers, right? The one episode of South Park that was written by ChatGPT is not the best episode of South Park and was probably not completely written by ChatGPT. I would much rather see these heads of studios be replaced by AI than writers being replaced by AI. I would much rather see executive being replaced by AI than directors. And just like the people that actually make the artwork, we should probably keep the humans that make the artwork, creating the artwork, and replace the people who don't do anything, who cost the most money. It's like just in the whole budgeting of the economy of this country in general. Like, or in New York, I talked about New York, how they're cutting the budget of libraries. Meanwhile, the police department is getting massive raises, right? They spend billions of dollars on New York Police Department, and only a few $1 million is needed for the libraries to function, and barely functioning, a fraction. But they would rather reduce that fraction that's spent on libraries to give people that suck at their jobs, who violate human rights, to give them all raises because they were criticized for brutalizing citizens. And it's just, or our country that spends trillions of dollars on war, funding ridiculous government war contracts, but doing little to nothing to actually help the people that live in this country. They'd rather cut spending on homeless and children and veterans and seniors and spend billions of dollars on worthless war machines. It is so backwards, and it's saying the people that defend the backwards nature of everything. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about, are you a fan of art, movies, and all things entertainment? Then you need to check out youtube.com/inspired disorder. Our page is jam-packed with all kinds of great content, including making of videos of the many faces, an ongoing art series of abstract ink paintings. But that's not all. We also feature daily episodes from The Ray Taylor Show, a podcast that brings you movie reviews, TV show reviews, episode recaps, opinions on news and entertainment, and much more. There's also a weekly diary and top 5 movie rankings of a variety of categories. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got how-to videos covering all kinds of topics. So why wait? Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and start exploring the amazing content we have to offer. And now back to the show. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. Story number 2, everything you need to know about the king's coronation. I don't know if it's my headphones or if it's my microphone. I'm hoping the audio's okay. There's like a little buzzing I'm hearing. But The coronation happened. I think the royal family is ridiculous. They're wasting a ton of money on some ridiculous ceremony where they don't even do anything. It's just like all they do is represent like white supremacy. They represent incest. They represent the needless invasion of countries, right? Destroying countries, stealing from countries, right? They don't represent anything good of society, and yet they are held up on this pedestal for traditional reasons. King Charles III's coronation took place on May 6th, which is yesterday as I'm recording this, in Westminster Abbey, with over 2,000 guests invited. Members of the royal family attended, including Queen Consort Camilla, the entire Wales family, and the Duke of Sussex. But the Duchess of Sussex stayed at home in California with their children. Camilla was crowned Queen Consort alongside King Charles III. The coronation regalia, which included ceremonial swords, scepters, orbs, St. Edward's crown, were featured in the service. King Charles III commissioned 12 new pieces for the ceremony, with Andrew Lloyd Webber and Patrick Doyle among the composers. The coronation concert took place on May 7th in Windsor Castle, with performances from Katy Perry, Lionel Richie, Andrea Bocelli, and others. There is an additional bank holiday for King Charles III's coronation, and Britons are encouraged to celebrate with their street parties and community volunteering. The royal family had the power to censor the BBC coverage of the coronation, and negotiations over footage allegedly went on until just hours before the event started. This raised questions about the extent of the constitutional monarch's power. I mean, that seems like massive sense. This is like government-controlled TV, controlled specifically by this family of inbred fucks, right? The cost of living crisis was highlighted as the ornate display of the coronation made people uncomfortable. The use of gold, carriage, and other extravagant elements were seen disastrous given the current situation, right? Because that's what everybody wants to see when they're barely affording to pay their bills, is to see this ridiculous ceremony of wealth and power to a family that supposedly is in charge because God bestowed them with their bullshit. And, you know, just like rubbing your face and like, oh, look at all these rich people that do nothing, contribute nothing to society, literally contribute nothing to society, have gotten their wealth from stealing and overthrowing and invading other countries, like doing the worst things imaginable, being the most evil humans, and they're still celebrated. Anti-monarchy protesters dressed in bright yellow were arrested during the coronation, with more than a dozen people reportedly detained. Human rights organizations criticized the move and called it a totalitarian crackdown, which we saw, I think, when did that? There was another one that happened when I think they were announcing that after the Queen died, during her funeral, people just holding up blank pieces of paper were arrested. It's ridiculous. And they wasted 20.5 million pounds on this bullshit festival of bullshit. I don't know. I don't live there, so I'm sure there's many people from the UK that think that my opinion shouldn't even exist. But considering I understand how the world is going at this time, where people are tired of these multinational corporations and wealthy people that exist in this world how they are profiting off of every human being's hard work, where we are not even able to survive. Like, it is mind-blowing to think that they would be surprised we'd be a little upset with this situation. And if anybody has a problem, like they don't think I should have an opinion because I don't live in the UK, you should just grow up, right, and mind your own business. If you don't like my opinions, you don't have to listen. It's very simple. It is very simple. Nobody's forcing you to watch this. Nobody's saying you have to agree with me, right? If you turn on the TV and something comes on the TV that you don't like, do you maintain watching that, or do you change the channel? Do you find something that you agree with and want to watch? Or do you write into the producers of every show that you don't like, telling them that they need to stop producing shows you don't like because the world should revolve around you, because you're a spoiled little adult child that thinks that the world should revolve around you and everybody should kind of bend to your will? I don't care. Grow up. I have opinions, and I don't have to live everywhere. I just happen to have opinions. And this isn't a news show. This is an opinion show. Crazy. Why don't you start your own show where you can have your opinions? And guess what? Don't be surprised when people show up to say that you shouldn't have your opinions. Anyway, ridiculous what's going on in the UK. It's amazing that this, even though they're just like these symbols, these figureheads, they literally don't do anything. The fact that they have any amount of power and that like the media is so obsessed with it is just ridiculous. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. Like, literally, that family represents white supremacy on a global level. It is what their mission has been throughout the history of that family, to invade other countries, thinking that they literally think that they are superior to everybody else. They think God bestowed them with, that's the reason they're kings, because God said they should be. So disgusting. So disgusting. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking to add some unique and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor. That's me. These abstract paintings on paper explore the endless possibilities of the human face, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Now you can bring these stunning and thought-provoking pieces into your own space with high-quality prints and t-shirts, featuring designs from the Many Faces series. Or take home a one-of-a-kind original piece for your collection. Don't miss out on this opportunity to add some original and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase original artworks, prints, and t-shirts from the Many Faces series today. And now, back to the show. Let's move on to our last story. What's in House Republicans' bill to lift the debt ceiling and cut spending? Bernie Sanders accuses Republicans of holding the world economy hostage with the debt ceiling, claiming that the GOP wants to cut necessary health and education programs. Duh. I mean, that's what they want to do. That's their MO. They say their MO. They tell everybody what their MO is. Their MO is doing all of the things that will allow the most wealthy people and corporations to profit the most off of doing garbage, polluting, poisoning the environment, poisoning the water. They want kids to go back to work. They don't want businesses to have to offer people livable compensation for their work. They don't want to have to offer livable, like, health provisions to keep people alive. They don't want kids to be fed if they're hungry. They don't want any of that for the people that actually do the work. And they're using this because Kevin McCarthy had to make deals to somehow get elected to the House Speaker. So now he's in the pocket of all these right-wing extremists, and he's doing everything they want, because if he doesn't, then they can replace him. And this debt ceiling thing, which the debt exploded from their orange savior, Donald Trump, who cut taxes on all of the wealthiest people. And surprise, when you don't have money coming in, you're going to get into a lot of debt, right? All these wealthy people have no idea what debt is. It's amazing how wealthy people are horrible with managing debt because they've never had to deal with it and don't care. And this is ridiculous. So the House passed Speaker Kevin McCarthy's debt ceiling bill by a 217 to 215 vote, serving as the GOP's position on avoiding the debt crisis. President Biden's refusal to negotiate may not be tenable as the deadline nears for action. The economic analysts warn that even the political threat of a federal default on the nation's debt could cause a recession, given that the already jittery economy, which is, thanks Trump, thanks, and a lot of Democrats too, thanks for a lot of worthless politicians, a lot of them. The Treasury Department, especially those two, the few like Sinema, those worthless, fake Democrats who basically just do whatever the extreme Republicans do, right? Thanks guys, appreciate it. The Treasury Department continues to pay the nation's bills, but the money who cares? The money's fake anyway. You print money all the time. What's the difference? Print more money. What is it based on? It's not based on anything. The debt, we're never paying the debt off. Debt explodes every time a Republican's in office. People are always getting the short end of the stick, right? The people that do the work are the ones that are continually fucked over. But soon, the money will fall short. With the deadline for raising the debt ceiling limit late July, according to analysts from Goldman Sachs, Sanders is open to cutting military spending. Yeah, that's great. We spend way too much on military. Way too much. Just like we spend way too much on police. So Sanders open to cutting military spending, waste in the government, demanding that large corporations and the wealthiest people actually pay some taxes. What a novel idea. Making it so the money the government spends isn't solely on the backs of the poor people who are doing all the work. Maybe all of the people and corporations who profit from all of the poor people's work should probably contribute. It's crazy. Thanks to Reagan. Good old Reagan, who started all this. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Republican lawmakers on Wednesday unveiled their plan to raise the debt ceiling and cut government spending ahead of the looming summer deadline to avert catastrophic and historic default on the U.S. on its debt obligations. The proposal, called the Limit, Save, and Grow Act, would lift the debt limit by $1.5 trillion or until the end of March 2024, and also details cuts in federal spending to the tune of $4.5 trillion. But where they're doing the cuts is where you see why it's horrible. President Biden and Democrats have been pushing for a bill that raises or suspends the debt limit with no conditions, while Republicans have been set on pairing spending cuts with a debt ceiling hike. The plan has no chance of passing the Democrat-led Senate, and even if it did, that would most likely be vetoed by Joe Biden. The bill does, however, serve as House Republicans' opening offer in any eventual negotiations and sheds light on the priorities of a fractured caucus that enjoys a narrow margin or a narrow majority. The Limit, Save, and Grow Act would lift debt limits, limit increase on federal budgets to 1% per year, impose stricter work requirements for receiving supplemental nutrition assistance program funding, right? So it means less people will qualify for government assistance, right? You have to be like super poor super poor for them to start caring. It will also get rid of $80 million in additional IRS funding so that the IRS can't go after the corporations and wealthy people who do everything to avoid paying taxes. It will also recoup unspent federal COVID-19 relief funds. It will nullify Biden's program for giving student loan debt up to which is not $20,000. It's like, first off, that's probably not going through. And second off, $20,000 is such a small percentage of anybody who has college loan debt. Like, it's like the smallest thing the government could do to help people out. And that this is like, these are the pennies that they are cutting from the poorest people while allowing billionaires to rake in profits. It'll also repeal provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act. The GOP bill limits increase in the federal budget by 1% a year, significantly lower than the rates inflation and less than recent year-over-year budget increases, particularly since the pandemic. That isn't likely to fly with the Democrats as it necessarily means cuts to discretionary spending. Instead of taxing the wealthy and major corporations, they want to cut social services because they don't care about people. They could care less about kids. They could care less, right? Their agenda is to make sure companies can pollute as much as they want. Their agenda is to make sure wealthy people will never have to pay taxes and can profit over the labor of people that are dying in the streets. They're going to profit on the labor of people who can't even afford, after working multiple jobs, still can't even afford to exist in this reality. Because that's all they care about. Because they just care about money. That's all they care about. They could care less about people. It's insane. My sources for this episode, Deadline.com, Vogue.com, Finance.yahoo.com, FoxBusiness.com, and CBSNews.com. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Swipe Up. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and insights on the latest news and entertainment updates. If you feel so inclined, please join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder. I'll see you next Thursday for more unfiltered opinions and fresh perspectives.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can